Hey, I'm Josh Kevel, and this is my Capstone. It doesn't look like much yet, but I'll flip the camera around and explain everything that's going on right here. It's basically just a mirror that's distorted on a gradient. I'm not exactly proud of the way it turned out, you could say, but I'll explain a little bit of what the original design was supposed to be, and then hopefully you can get a better picture of what was supposed to be going on with it. But I do really think it represents my time at Regis still. So my original concept for this was the pillar of loving in the grad at grad, and that specifically reflects on self-love as a progression from freshman year to senior year, and the way that I view myself and the way that I worry about others viewing me. I gave a lot of this kind of a talk with my Kairos speech, knowing yourself, but this kind of relates as well. So my original project idea was, if you've ever been to, say, a carnival, or I don't know, like a museum. I'm trying to think of where else I've seen them, but they have like these giant mirrors that like distort the image or the picture that's being reflected back. So you look in the mirror and you see these waves, and you might see like a really skinny legs or something. That's It just throws off. It's not a regular mirror, basically. So my idea was to distort a mirror. So to take a regular mirror and to turn it into that on a gradient. So I could have like one end that was super distorted and you couldn't really well see yourself, and things weren't where they're supposed to be, so it was like a self-image kind of an idea. And then I was going to do that on a gradient so that by the end you have a really good and clear picture of what you actually are supposed to look like. It's like a regular mirror. You're seeing yourself for how you really are and how you should be viewing yourself, and not from how this distorted, societal standard makes you look. So I figured out pretty quick through my research that there wasn't really a way to do this without like an expensive wrap like they do with cars, where they would like put that on and stretch it out differently and do a bunch of stuff. But I couldn't really figure out how to do that realistically with my high schooler budget, and I wanted it on a gradient again, so that was going to be really hard to do. So then I thought of spray painting it on a gradient, but then I really wanted like the reflective aspect of it to remain, so you could still kind of see yourself in one end, but it was just off, and then it got better again. So that was the concept for like a spray paint. And then I realized, well, mirrors are really reflective because they do this mercury coating along the back that actually creates the reflective. That's the silver. So like when you see them making a mirror, they'll prime one side and then they'll chemically adhere like one atom of mercury to the back of it, so then it gives it that silver shiny appearance. So I went and bought a mirror, and I decided that I was going to sand off that coating on a gradient. So I would sand off a lot or almost all of it on one half, on one end in kind of quadrants, and then nothing on the other end. So I'm gonna flip this camera around and show. Can I flip this camera? Okay. I don't actually know how to flip that around, but you can kind of see if I stand like this in the mirror on this end, like it's almost just a silhouette. And then as we get closer to this, the image gets better and better, better, and then you can see all of me. So that's really not a good image. It's like cloudy, hazy. All you see is my shadow. And then as we move along, it gets better. And I did sand all of this. The mirror is not just damaged, the backside is actually sanded, and I had to go through like a millimeter of paint, which was really hard. So that's why it took me so long to get this in, is because it took like 3 hours to sand this thing down. But this end is where I took a lot of the mercury off, and then this, I sanded all of the paint off all the way up to here, even though you can't really tell, because when it's standing up on its own and you can kind of see through it without this backing on it, then you can actually really not see anything here except for like the natural reflective properties of glass, which is what makes this reflective on this front side. But when it's dark behind it, then makes this glass. It's like seeing your reflection in a window almost instead of a mirror. And then this end is obviously just a regular mirror. So there's a white background behind this, but when there was a dark one, it just looked like a regular mirror. So I really did my best with it. But yeah, that represents a self-love evolution throughout my time at Regis. My grad at grad is loving. So I went from freshman year over here. I came in scared, small. I thought that I was going to be coming in. A bunch of kids from my middle school were coming over to high school with me. I viewed high school social groups and interactions on like a list scale and didn't really try and fit into a particular group. I viewed it based on like popularity and who I thought was a better picture of this like American kid that I had internalized in my head. So instead of finding people that were like-minded to me, that would appreciate me for who I am, I went looking for people who I considered popular and then like tried to follow them around. So I ended up wearing a mask that I would try to make look as cool as possible to what I thought people would like. And it ended up coming to a head sophomore year where I really had, I guess I could call it now like a self-image crisis, kind of, where I'd been following this one group of guys around for a while, trying to sit at their lunch table, trying to be friends with them, but at the same time, like, not really being myself, not goofing around, not, it sounds strange, but not like poking fun at them, which is something that guys do a lot. Like, if you're friends with someone, you like make fun of them and you feel comfortable around them. It's kind of like a laughing, a joy kind of thing. But I didn't with these guys. I just tried to be as quiet as possible and be as conformed as possible and just kind of follow them, so not to stir up any ill will or anything like that. And that very mask, that exact concept that I've been putting on to try and be liked by them, is exactly why I wasn't liked. And so that's why this side of the mirror is super distorted. As we get further over, it gets less distorted, because at a certain point around here, I just had this moment where I was like, okay, something's going wrong here, and I need to find people. Well, after I was sitting with that group for a while, there was this story that one of them put up on their Snapchat that I saw. It said, "We hate followers." And I mean synonymous words, so you obviously have heard this in my Kairos speech before, but that crushed me, and I ended up just eating lunch, even though it was illegal, eating lunch in the silent studies section of the library for the vast majority, or like the end of my sophomore year, and really just wondering why, like, am I not good enough? What's the deal here? And then over time I realized, well, I need to see myself for who I am and find people that I can be myself around. So that's what I ended up doing. I found a great group of friends who, well, we get to go to prom with now, which is super cool. Like, homecoming sophomore year, I ate dinner with my grandmother. She drove me to the dance and picked me up right after, a little early. I left early and then went straight home while everyone else was out having after parties and stuff, because I didn't have a good enough self-image or confidence to go anywhere. I just wanted to go to the dance, jump around a little bit in a crowd where I could blend in and not be seen by anyone, and then kind of disappear. But now, senior year, my self-image is a whole lot better. I look at myself, I know my weaknesses as like a procrastinator and all this kind of stuff, but it's not something that tears me down, and I don't try and be someone that I'm not like fake around people anymore. Like, it's impossible to make real friends if you're being fake around them, and that's something that it took me this whole gradient scale. The light's going crazy. It took me this whole gradient scale to learn that lesson, but it's something that invaluable going forward that Regis really taught me. So that's why I made this distorted mirror. I'll show it one more time. This distorted mirror, my capstone. Yeah, so that's my capstone. Thank you.